Locked at 0-0 and with the prospect of an even more difficult replay on the horizon, John Lyall's second division West Ham needed a goal against Division 1 Aston Villa, and quickly. There were just 2 minutes of this closely contested 1980 FA Cup quarter-final remaining when Villa's Ken McNaught appeared to handle Trevor Brookings' corner. West Ham's players appealed and referee David Richardson was in no doubt as he pointed immediately to the penalty spot, to the delight of more than 36,000 fans crammed inside the bowling ground.
And Ray Stewart, the number 4, what a task he's got.
With several of his teammates simply unable to watch, 20-year-old fullback Ray Tonka Stewart, who at the time had been at West Ham for less than a year since his £400,000 move from Dundee United, stepped up to smash the ball into Jimmy Rimmer's bottom right corner and send the Happy Hammers through to a semi-final clash with Everton, another First Division team.
Yeah, it's a late booking. We weren't expecting this one. Yeah, French geezer, stand there with his hand up. Taxi for Bartes.
Having disposed of Walsall in the third round by 3-2, West Ham were left cursing their luck when they were drawn away to the all-conquering Manchester United in the fourth round of the FA Cup in 2001. Few gave the Hammers a cat-in-hell's chance of toppling the then mighty Mancunians, but not even the fact that ITV were broadcasting the game live could prevent some 9,000 Happy Hammers from making the 200-mile trip up the M1. And there wasn't a single fan regretting making the journey when Paolo Di Canio was on hand to score the game's only goal with just 14 minutes remaining. Sent clean through by Freddie Canute's slide rule pass, the Italian strode towards goal. Manchester United keeper Fabian Barthez bizarrely attempted to psych the striker out by raising his arm for an offside that never was, and Di Canio swept the ball beyond the crazy Frenchman to send 9,000 EastEnders delirious and West Ham through to the competition's fifth round. Having seen off the challenges of Le Gantois, Sparta Prague and Lausanne in the preceding stages of the 1964-65 Cup Winners' Cup competition, West Ham were pitched against Real Zaragoza in the semi-final. At stake was a Wembley final against TSV Munich, conquerors of Turin in the other semi-final. Surely an opportunity too good to be missed. Brian Deere certainly thought so, for it was the big striker who gave West Ham the lead inside the opening 10 minutes at the Boleyn, before Budgie Burns sent the Hammers 2 ahead on 24 minutes. But Ron Greenwood's team were to leave the field to a chorus of boos after deploying no less than 9 defensive players for the second half, in which they conceded once, with Canario scoring for the highly rated Spaniards. In defiance of the negative reaction to his tactics in the second half of the first leg, Greenwood employed similar tactics for the return tie. Although West Ham went a goal behind to a La Petra effort early doors, which put Zaragoza ahead on away goals, Johnny Sisson's 54th minute equaliser was enough to send the Hammers back to Wembley for a second successive season. West Ham, on their way to a 9th-placed finish in the Cannon League Division 1, had been paired with Minnow's Bury in the second round of the Milk Cup, having received a bye in the first. Torrential rain in the first leg at Gig Lane saw West Ham take an early lead through Paul Goddard, before John Lyall's side were pegged back by Craig Madden's equaliser. The Hammers eventually won the match 2-1 against the run of play through a nil-all strike. With West Ham's history of falling foul of lower league clubs in the Cups, it's fair to say that there were quite a few nerves at the bowling ground ahead of the second leg. Tony Cotty's second-minute opener should have settled those nerves, but Billy Bonds gave away a penalty just 2 minutes later. John Bramall could and should have made it 3-2 on aggregate, but his spot kick hit the post, signalling the start of a quite astonishing collapse by the 4th Division side. 3 more goals for Cotty followed, complemented by a brace each for Trevor Brooking and Alan Devonshire. Finally, the ubiquitous Ray Stewart penalty gave West Ham a club record 10-0 win on the night and 12-1 on aggregate.
Brooking, nice ball inside. This is Devonshire. Bang! Beautiful goal. Brooking and Devonshire again. Brilliant goal from the combination of Brooking and Devonshire. That's 10-0.
Sixth placed West Ham arrived at Stamford Bridge for this Easter weekend Cannon League Division 1 clash, 2 places below fellow title chasers Chelsea. What was to follow was one of the most extraordinary derbies between the two sides, as the Hammers strengthened their own title credentials with a stunning 4-0 win. A result made all the more remarkable as John Lyall's side had scored just 6 goals in their previous 8 league outings. Alan Devonshire started the rout with a long-range pile driver midway through the first half, before Tony Cottee doubled West Ham's lead 10 minutes into the second half, when converting George Parris's low cross.
Cottee, it's 2! Laid on by Paris and finished in style by Cottee.
Frank McAvenny beat Chelsea's offside trap before centering for Cottee to make it 3-0 with 64 minutes on the clock.
McAvenny had stayed onside. The flag was down. He has Cottee up in support here. Is this 3? It is!
And finally, McAvenny smashed home a miss-hit Cottee effort to make it 4-0. The 3 second-half goals all arrived within just 13 minutes of each other. West Ham went on to win 9 of their remaining 12 matches to secure a club record 3rd place in the top flight. Chelsea followed this resounding defeat by being thrashed 6-0 by QPR at Loftus Road just 48 hours later, thereby effectively ending their own title hopes. Brian Deer is one of the lesser lights in West Ham United's history, understandably perhaps given his contemporaries. But on one memorable occasion back in April 1965, he set a First Division record when scoring 5 goals in one game, and all in the space of just 20 minutes. The opponents at the Bowling Ground that day were West Bromwich Albion, who were to end the season in 14th place, 5 spots below West Ham. Martin Peters had already opened West Ham's account before Deer, who was only playing because first-choice forward Johnny Byrne was sidelined through injury, made it 2-0 a minute ahead of the break. Albion legend Jeff Astall scored to make it 2-1 seconds later, but West Ham maintained their goal advantage going into the break. Deer then struck in the 53rd, 56th, 59th and 64th minutes to give West Ham a stunning 6-1 victory and to set a record that, to our knowledge, is yet to be beaten in either the old First Division or the Premier League. With just 6 games of the 1985-86 season remaining, John Lyall's West Ham was sitting 3rd in the Cannon League Division 1 on 72 points, behind Everton and Liverpool on 79 points each. Despite being 7 points adrift of the front 2, and in the days of 2 points for a win, the Hammers went into the Newcastle match in great form, having won 6 of their last 8 league games, a string of results that had made them serious contenders for the league title. The Geordies were having a fairly decent campaign themselves, being as they were firmly entrenched in mid-table in 10th place of a 22-team top flight. So there were few signs of the annihilation that was to follow, as West Ham equalled their record number of goals scored in the top flight with a complete destruction of their northern rivals. Yet even more notable was the fact that centre-half Alvin Martin scored not just a hat-trick, but a hat-trick against 3 different goalkeepers. Martin opened the scoring after just 3 minutes when he converted Alan Devonshire's free kick from close range. Further goals were added ahead of the break by Ray Stewart, Neil Orr and Newcastle's Glenn Roeder, who was left red-faced when scoring a peach of an own goal. Newcastle goalkeeper Martin Thomas, who had carried an injury into the game, was replaced at half-time by midfielder Chris Hedworth, as reserve goalkeeper David McKellar was also injured. There was little Hedworth could do to stop Martin's crashing header hitting the back of the net on 64 minutes. Moments later he returned to play on field, with Peter Beardsley now having a go between the sticks. The England forward fared little better than either of his predecessors, and after Paul Goddard and Frank McAvenny had added goals 6, 81 minutes, and 7, 83 minutes, Beardsley was left to face Martin from the penalty spot. Big Alvin stepped up confidently before sending his international teammate the wrong way to complete yet another unique West Ham United achievement.
West Ham United have not left here with 3 points since the 60s. Could that change here today?
Back in 1963, goals from Jeff Hurst and Martin Peters secured a 2-0 win at Anfield in a Division 1 fixture. Little did anyone know that it would be another 52 years before a West Ham team would return to London with a victory and maximum points in the bag. It had become something of a standing joke amongst Hammers fans of a certain age that they were unlikely to ever witness a win away to the Reds, who had dominated English football during the 1970s and 1980s and proved to be just as effective at home in later years, or at least where West Ham were concerned. But when Slaven Bilic's class of 2015 visited Anfield for their second away game of the season, something magical happened, and the Hammers finally secured that long-awaited win courtesy of goals from Manuel Lanzini, Mark Noble and Diafra Sakho. 2-0 behind at the break, Liverpool were reduced to 10 men when Philippe Coutinho received his marching orders, as did Mark Noble 12 minutes from time, although the dismissal was later overturned on video evidence. And so it was that Sakho completed a surprise yet comprehensive victory with West Ham's third and final goal in the last minute of normal time. West Ham were to play Liverpool a further 3 times that season, securing an aggregate win over the 4 ties, 2 league matches and 2 FA Cup, of 7-1.
West Ham have won it in the most dramatic fashion.
The 1966-67 season was, quite frankly, an absolutely extraordinary year for West Ham as far as first-team results went. The Hammers, whose World Cup winning trio was still basking in the glory of the previous summer's success, had been beaten 5-4 at Leicester in the 3rd game of the season, before going on to record a 6-1 win over Fulham, a 4-3 win at Tottenham, a 5-5 draw at Chelsea, plus 6-2 and 6-1 defeats against Southampton and Manchester United respectively. For title-chasing Leeds United, complete with superstars such as Billy Bremner, Jack Charlton, Norman Hunter and Jimmy Greenhoff, this 4th-round League Cup tie was one for which they were considered strong favourites. However, it couldn't have turned out any different, as they were simply destroyed by Ron Greenwood's men. Johnny Sissons and Jeff Hurst both grabbed a hat-trick, with Martin Peters scoring the 7th to condemn Leeds to a humiliating 7-0 defeat. And in case you're wondering, the match ball went to Sissons, as Hurst's first goal was initially attributed to Johnny Byrne. West Ham's first foray into the Intertoto Cup resulted in Harry Redknapp's men securing passage through to the final of the competition, with a prize, in addition to a quite ridiculous thumb-sized Intertoto trophy, being automatic entry into the first round of the UEFA Cup proper. However, a 1-0 defeat at the Bowling Ground in the first leg, courtesy of a young Louis Sahar, combined with a missed Frank Lampard penalty, meant that West Ham faced an uphill task in the second leg. Undaunted, a 3,000-strong travelling contingent of Hammers fans got right behind their team from the start and were rewarded when Trevor Sinclair fired home from the edge of the penalty box on 23 minutes to level the tie on aggregate. Frank Lampard then atoned for his first leg spot kick miss by putting West Ham 2 up on the night and ahead on aggregate 2 minutes before the half-time whistle. The home side pulled one back through Jestrovic on 68 minutes before Paolo Wanchop rounded keeper Latizi with little more than 10 minutes remaining to make it 3-1 on the night, 3-2 on aggregate, and send West Ham into the UEFA Cup proper for the first time in the club's history.